Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. This
Roll
is the
Tide.
episode dominated by Alabama fans. Woo!
See,
March
now
Madness, baby.
that's one of the first times that I've got a resounding roll tide from everybody on the show. Like I said, welcome again to the Risk Matrix. Today we have a special guest, Bill VandeSande. We have had him on before, but we got a really important topic today to discuss with him, and he's the right guy to do it. My co-host here is James Junkin.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. And I'm Dr. Martin, and we're going to get into it in just a second here. But before we do, everybody knows that we're powered by VeriForce. VeriForce makes this happen. But we do have sponsors. And before we get started, let's have a word from our sponsor.
The Safety on the Edge Conference is a premier event that brings together academia, industry leaders, safety professionals, regulatory agencies, and experts to discuss and promote the latest advancements in safety technology, models, and best practices. The Safety on the Edge Conference is proud to sponsor VeriForce's Risk Matrix.
VeriForce is proud to announce the latest version of our Safeland USA accredited course called Basic Orientation 7.0. This is our flagship course that has been taken by over 1.6 million students nationwide. The newest version of this course is shorter than the last version, with condensed training and updated multimedia, but it still includes the same topics as previous courses. As always, the Safeland orientation remains with this employee through the career. It eliminates the redundancy of multiple orientations, and it stores all the training records in a single centralized database for everyone to use. Also, we offer two solutions for getting the training. You can either seek out Safeland training from one of our third-party providers, or you can send one of your instructors through our Train the Trainer program to teach your own employees. If you're interested in learning more, please contact our training sales department at 888-482-9101. That's 888-482-9101. Or you can email us at trainingsales@veriforce.com.
And welcome back, and welcome Bill VandeSande to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm proud to be asked to come back.
Well, you got a lot of good things to talk about. And one of the things that James and I think you were discussing offline is the concept of, training. First of all, we talked a little bit about training the last time you were here, but train the trainer, right? Which is a whole nother animal altogether. So I think, with your permission, we'd like to delve a little bit into what goes into train the trainer, how to do it well, how people don't do it well, etc. So with your permission, we'd like to roll forward with that.
Oh, absolutely. You don't need my permission. That's why I'm here. Part of what is important on Train the Trainer is how the trainer gets into our class in the first place. It's the screening process. It's why are they there? Not just their own motivation, but why did their company send that person? And sometimes that person comes in because they're injured and they don't want to lose what this person knows, but they can't work. So now they're going to teach, as if those are compatible notions. All right.
I often think of, Bill, of training, being able to train well. Okay. I think a lot of people can train, right? And there's a wide variety, from just reading from a PowerPoint, boring, to people who actually, as you would put it, perform, right? But I think that to be a really good trainer, to be a really good train the trainer, person who trains trainers, you have to know that it's an art. There's a science to it, right? There are certain components that you have to have, and I think that we'll get into that when we talk about your Toastmasters experience. There's kind of a science to it, but there's an art too. So I'd like to see if you could tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I do whenever I do a train the trainer is somewhere early on in the first 5 or 6 minutes, I address my class and I say, welcome to show business. And I get these strange looks on the face. And I'll say, if you can't keep them awake, you're not going to teach them anything. So what we need to do is find your personality, find what works, find how you can express yourself. Well, there's the art of it. Express yourself. Now we're trying to get across a particular topic. I honestly don't like the word training. I much prefer the word education. I'm giving you an education. I'm trying to help you have something that you can use today, that you can apply to the class that you're here to learn how to teach, that I'm here to train you on how to be a teacher, instructor, facilitator on.
Training always smacks to me of behavior, right? You train your dog.
That's right.
You potty train your kids, right? That kind of is the connotation I get from training. When you say educate, I get knowledge that I can take with me. I can pack it up in a suitcase and take it along. I can expand upon that, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And even if I just get one chunk of education, if it's done well, I can apply it to 100 different situations. And that's the difference between training and education. Training is a specific skill, specific task.
Right.
It's behavior.
It's behavior. Yeah.
So this is so important because a common component of every safety professional's role within an organization at some point, no matter who you are, you're in the education, quote, training business, right? You may not be out here teaching, electrical safety awareness classes, or you might be. You may have risen up the ladder where you don't do those type of orientation awareness level type classes anymore, but you're still presenting, you're still selling, you're still educating, even in a role that's primarily administrative. Who's your audience now?
Right.
Management team, your board of directors, your CEO, other executives that you're educating into the value of safety. So I think every safety professional is a trainer. And I also think training is a practiced art. It's a practiced art. The more you do it, the better you'll be at it.
All three of us agree. Practice is essential. Get out there and speak as often as possible. When you have an opportunity at a tailgate meeting to say five words, say those 5 words so you get a feeling of what it's like to talk in front of a whole group of other people. Say something witty and charming, and then something that goes right to the point, right to the heart.
Yeah. I like that. That actually is my style, Bill. I like to warm up the audience a little bit and then give them a good one, right? Give them a good piece of education right between the ears. That's right.
Now I was going to say between the eyes, but the ears makes more sense.
Yeah, I need a broader target. Maybe you're a better shot than I am, but I need a broader target. So let's talk a little bit about, because I know that you do a lot of train the trainer education. Okay.
Yeah.
What makes a good train the trainer course then? What components go into it, and what are you looking for when you are trying to evaluate whether or not the people that are in your class are gonna make it, so to speak?
The key thing that I am looking for, and that's the key thing right there, is what you're looking for. You have to observe whether the person has the ability to speak for 8 hours.
A long time.
Do they have the physical skills necessary to actually be an instructor? And one of the things that I do, because of my background, and you know my background, but maybe the folks that are listening don't. I started out as a professional actor, a juggler, a tightrope walker. I was
Dolphin trainer.
I was a dolphin trainer.
Love it.
I was involved in television production, voiceover work, medical television. People say, "Oh, you couldn't keep a job," and it was like, no, I couldn't keep an industry. But I went from one thing to the next.
But it was all communication, right?
It was yes, precisely, was 100% communication. And I was fortunate as a child to be such an introvert that I could observe other people and want to be just like them. And I found the right people that I wanted to be like and emulate. And so I went to college and got a degree in theater and became a professional actor. You don't have the opportunity to be an introvert and be an actor when you're executing your art.
Well, that's interesting you said that, because I was taking a class, I think it was an OSHA class years ago. And if you had asked me before the class, James, are you an extrovert or an introvert? I would say I'm an extrovert, right? But really, after he went through all the characteristics and personalities and all that, really, I'm an introvert.
Isn't that interesting?
I am at home. My wife, y'all gonna think I'm crazy, but like, I love my neighbors. I don't have anything wrong with my neighbors. But when I'm at home and I've spent all day teaching and talking and communicating and performing and all the other things that goes into being a safety professional, the last thing I want to do is chit chat at the mailbox. Like, if I head to the mailbox and one of my neighbors is there, I turn around and come back inside. And she sent me a thing and said, a little meme that was up. It said, "Neighbor spoke to me today, time to move." Now, I'm not that bad, but I guess that's one of those things that I've developed a skill to be able to communicate. But in my regular life, my circle of communication and things, I'd rather sit in my chair and read than talk on the phone, right?
That's interesting, James, because I am the same way. You would think I'm an extrovert, right? I talk to anybody, everybody. I'm cordial when I'm out, but it's not because I like to do it. It's because I feel it's necessary in order for me to engage with the world, right? It's not natural. It may seem natural, but it's not. It's very okay, now I've got to do this, right? I've got to get out there. I've got to talk. I've got to do a training. I've got to present to somebody. But I'm like James, if I can sit at home and not talk to my neighbors and be quiet and read a book and just kind of go inward, I do. But I don't have that luxury, right? Because I'm a consultant and I have to talk to my clients and I have to talk to people. So it's interesting. Now we all three identify as introverts.
We're all introverts. Absolutely. And I am. When I'm not on, I'm off. Right. I'm not retired yet. I'm old enough to be retired, but I don't want to retire, because when I'm working, I'm not working. I'm having fun. I'm performing. I've got a message that I think is important. And so I enjoy standing up there. I enjoy being challenged. I enjoy watching the audience, watching the members of the class and seeing if they're getting it and knowing when to ask questions and so on. So the first answer to your question, what are we looking for? We're looking for personality, looking for an opportunity to expand on a person's personality so that they can comfortably get up and speak. One of the other things that I'm looking for is the skill. We have what's called an instrument. It's our voice, it's our body. Is my posture correct so that I'm not fatiguing myself simply because I'm bent over?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 6'1". One of the first plays that I ever did in college, the director asked me, "How tall are you?" And I told him 6'1", and he says, No, you're 6'4". And I said, what do you mean I'm 6'4"? He says, be 6'4".
Act like it.
Just be 6'4".
Like
and all of a sudden I'm stretching up. He says, feels good in the middle of your back, doesn't it? Takes a lot of pressure off your feet when you're balanced correctly. The bones were designed to handle that, not your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, here at 73 years old, I can stand all day long in the classroom and I'm not fatigued physically. I'm fatigued mentally and emotionally from the teaching.
Yep.
So it's a whole different
thing. If you do
things.
it right, you will be.
Yep.
So I can relate. I can relate a little bit to your story, right? I started out. I'm not little by any means. I don't consider myself little. I'm average, for a female, right? But I was a camp counselor. And anybody that's ever worked at a summer camp, right? And you have to corral 50, 60 kids or 80 kids or 100 some kids before the dining hall opens, right? And sing songs, you learn very quickly to rely on personality, your ability to project your voice, right?
Yeah.
To gain an audience, to do all those things. And one of the things that people say to me now when I train or when I go on a construction site is they can't believe how loud my voice can get. And I mean, I got it. That was my training. That was my
Yeah.
presentation. That was my performance art training was there. And out of my 5'7" body comes this booming voice that people don't expect.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we have to bear in mind is, where do you place your voice? As a camp counselor, my first job out of high school, now I had other jobs, scooping ice cream and whatnot, while I was in high school, was camp counselor for a summer. And one of the things, as you mentioned, is I've got to talk across the whole field to get control of the guys that are in my bunk, that kind of stuff. But the other
Good luck
thing
with that, right?
the other thing that came with that, and this is another thing that I look for, is compassion, passion for something and compassion for other people. And I had this one young man ask me at summer camp if I would teach him how to juggle. And it was one of my first opportunities to really start to analyze how someone juggles. I taught myself, but I didn't really analyze what I was doing. And years later, I actually did teach the kid how to juggle, and he got pretty decent. All we had to work with were basketballs. I mean, it's one of the more difficult things to learn from or to use, and he learned how to juggle with basketballs. Years later, we've got Facebook out there, and Camp Williams has a Facebook page.
Yep.
I signed up for that, and I'm seeing all, I only did it one summer, but I'm, all
But
this.
they remember.
Oh yeah.
But
And
they remember, Bill.
all this nostalgia. And I got a message from that kid asking me if I was the Bill VandeSande who taught him how to juggle. And I said, yes, I am. And he says, I've been hoping I would be able to find you forever. I became a gym teacher, kinesthesiology is
Yeah.
what he studied, and became a
Yeah.
gym teacher. And he said, I made it mandatory. Every class of kids that I had, if you were going to get an A in my class, you had to learn how to juggle. And he said, at this point, the little pay it forward that you did with me, there are literally more than 100,000 kids out there, people out there who know how to juggle.
So that's that, just to kind of circle back, right? That's the compassion component. That is something that you're looking for when you're looking at, can this person be a good trainer? They need to want to pay it forward and almost have the thrill of finding different ways for different people to pay that piece of knowledge forward, because you might reach 10 out of 20 people right away with the way that you just Bill VandeSande teaches, right? But there are another 10 that you're going to have to vary your message or actually put a different kind of spin on things. And that's the compassion of teaching, is that you care enough to reach those people too.
And to me, the important thing that I take out of that is, I don't care if you get paid. I don't care what you get paid. You want to teach. You want to share that.
Man, there is nothing for all of the young safety professionals, or maybe older ones have been in some part of safety that's not really gotten into teaching. There is nothing better, no better feeling in the world than holding that classroom in the palm of your hand and being able to convey a message, and everybody's eyes are on you, and everybody is focused on what you're conveying. And then 10 years later, you get a message from one of these students you taught, and that remembers something that you said. And it's not just safety. It's really, really educators in general, all of us remember that coach. I can't remember you or that teacher. I can't remember all my teachers through school. I got a friend that does. My third grade teacher was, I have no idea who my third grade teacher was, right? Nor do I care. But there are teachers, there are educators, there are safety professionals that taught me along my way that made an impact. And I remember not everything they said, but some of the things that they said that enlightened me, that made an impact on me. One of my mentors is long gone now, but Bill had an opportunity to know him. And I hate you didn't get to meet him, Dr. Martin, but it was a guy by the name of Larry Bryce. And he was my master trainer and mentor and friend. And I remember the first thing he said when he opened the class for us to go to become instructors. He said, I did not have to go to Vietnam to see people get killed. In 1968, I went to work in the offshore oil and gas industry. My first day on the job, I got on a helicopter, flew off to the Gulf to land on a platform out there to start work. As soon as it landed, I went to get off. They pushed me back on. They said, ride with this guy. And a gentleman that had his leg severed and they had a tourniquet on him. Said, just talk to him and try to keep him alive. That was my first day on the job. What you do is important. And man, that stuck with me. He said that to me, I don't know, 16, 17 years ago. And I can feel the goosebumps coming up now, just like it was sitting in that class. So I think all safety professionals that teach want to have that impact on their students. So Bill, let me ask you the question. How do you get to be that kind of instructor?
Tips and tricks. Tips and tricks from Bill VandeSande.
Tips and tricks. Well, I don't think there are any tips and tricks. I think number one, you have to make a commitment to doing it, a personal commitment that I want to have that ability. Then you find out what skill set that you need in order to deliver. It's one thing to have a great idea. In college, I took a class in astronomy, and the teacher was not interested. This was a PhD. No offense against PhDs, Linda. And he was interested in black holes back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Probably singularly interested in black holes, right?
They're very good. Yeah, that's a fantastic joke. I hope a third of the audience gets it. And he spoke way over our heads, and immediately he did it on purpose. And he immediately said, would you be good with the idea of having my teaching assistant teach this class instead of me? And we all said, this is astronomy 101. I'm not going to tell you anything
Give us the information, right?
Yeah, give us the information. The next class, in comes this young guy who was, working on his master's degree. And he was phenomenal. He remembered what it was like to know nothing about the topic. And that's one of the things that I think is important, is not that we speak down to people, but that we speak with the intention to fill in those gaps, because everybody in that class doesn't know something. Another thing is everybody in that class knows something you don't know.
Right.
So you've got to have dignity and respect, and you want to have a conversational tone like we're having, because then people will engage in the conversation. So that's another one of the things that I look for. Can you speak to me in a conversational tone so I feel comfortable? I don't care if I feel safe. That part doesn't affect me personally, but I know some people rely on it, and that's fantastic. And we need to, but do I feel comfortable talking with you?
Mm-hmm. Well, in some respects, Bill, just to, not to kind of brush past that, feeling comfortable is feeling safe.
Yes, it is.
Right.
You're absolutely correct. I sit corrected.
The way instructors create comfort is by learning who their students are. And as consultants, we don't have a relationship with students as far as knowing them oftentimes before they come to class, what their backgrounds are during the introduction period that I think it's extremely valuable. You may learn a little bit about them, but you're going to learn throughout the entirety of the course. And back to something you said, Bill, I think is a problem in safety education, particularly with safety educators, trainers, as they grow in the profession and gain more knowledge, right? Sometimes they forget what it's like to be, I'm brand new. You know, Bill and I work in a high hazard industry in oil and gas and construction, just like you do, Dr. Martin, right? And so we could teach a week-long class on lockout, tag out, on confined space, on rigging, you know, whatever.
And all the intricacies of this,
absolutely,
that, and the other, right?
You know, but the time to deliver that to these students, you know, is not usually
in
in their new hire orientation course where they're, you know, they're just trying to be able to get enough knowledge to go out there and perform their job safely and not get hurt. It's not time to tell the student everything you know about NFPA 70E.
And now take that and push it forward one step on train the trainer. There's not enough time to teach a person how to be a trainer. What we have to do is look at what they bring to the table now, and in a half day or a day and a half, perhaps, how can I coach this person to be better, or even just coach them to understand what they already know, but they're not aware they know it. They're already displaying certain skills. It's a skill set. It's an art. You got to have both. I mean, if you're going to be a good artist, you've got to know which brush to use, which kind of paint to use, how to put the strokes down, when to put the strokes down. There's all these technical things that happen before the art happens. This same thing goes here.
Yeah. So I know I maybe I offended you by saying tips and tricks, right? But I guess what I meant was, what are some ideas on how to get better? And I think you know what I'm getting at, because even you, Bill VandeSande, who's been training and trained the trainer forever, you do things that help you improve, help you keep your skills the way that they are.
One of the things that I would strongly recommend to anybody is look for an opportunity to go into a situation where you purposefully try to learn how to be better. And one of the things that I did 2 years ago now, even with my background, I joined a group called Toastmasters. You alluded to it earlier when we were speaking. And Toastmasters, the purpose of Toastmasters is for you to do a 5 to 7 minute speech in front of the group. The group will then give you accolades for what you did well. You'll have an evaluator that will tell you what you could do better and give you challenges to expand on your capabilities. And I entered that program or joined that group thinking maybe there is something that I can use in my classes that would help me be a better master trainer doing train the trainers. And what I found is I got so engrossed in doing the activities and discovering I'm becoming a much better speaker after all these years simply by being involved with these people, analyzing what other people are doing, finding the things that are good in everybody's speech. And one of the things you don't want to do is discourage people. So you've got to find something that is good, find the good, find the bad, find the ugly, and give good feedback in the meantime. And
I gotta apologize for this. This is what I deal with every day here. This little guy, right? He is a handful. So I'm gonna try to get him down. He just pulled on the cord. There we go.
Okay. It's just like that's like having a classroom of students.
Yeah.
You know?
I had somebody give me this idea of how to tell whether you're speaking well or not. And he said, I have 2 golden retrievers. And what I do is I have them come into the room and sit down in front of me. And I start to deliver my talk, deliver my speech, deliver my class. And if I'm enthusiastic, if I have uh, good vocal range, they will stay engaged. As soon as I start to drift off, lose my posture, lose my enthusiasm, they'll either go to sleep or they'll leave the room, which is a good metaphor for
Yeah.
what happens
Well,
in the classroom.
let me tell you something. If you have a French bulldog, they don't listen to anything you say, no matter how engaging you are. They do their own thing on their own time.
We
So,
have two mini weenies, so dachshunds. They don't
yeah,
listen to anything, but they will offer their opinion on
exactly.
everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they're
So
they're
let's,
I wanted to throw this out here too, before you get into your Toastmasters experience, because I'm very, very interested in that, because I think all of us want to be better instructors, better trainers. This is a lesson from many years ago when I first started this, and I was just learning to be an instructor. Here's the worst thing you can do is try to be somebody else. Okay.
yes,
And
absolutely.
I had the privilege, the honor, and the good fortune to be around a lot of powerful trainers like Bill, like Mr. Larry that we talked about, Reggie Booth's another one that comes to mind, Shane Bernard, Richard Emberling. These were masters at their ability to communicate and to train. And so early on, I'd show up to their classes and I'd take notes. If they told a joke, I write down the joke. If they had a cool story I liked, I'd write down the story. And I spent a lot of time. Larry and I spent a lot of time together training in different places around the country, and I always listen to his classes. And I'm like, well, nobody's laughing at the joke that's really Larry's joke, right? Because it's not my joke. And he said, look, you got to be you. And when I stopped trying to be Larry and Bill and Shane and Mr. Reggie, things started clicking. Now, the other side of that is then I learned to borrow. If you're in safety, you borrow a lot, right? So
yep.
I'd say I like how Reggie Booth taught lockout tagout, how the examples that he used and what he put on the board really made sense to the students and me. I'm going to add that to my toolbox. And then after you gain experience, you've got all these resources in your mental toolbox. So when something comes up in the class, you can draw on it. And that's what makes, for me, in my experience, each class interesting, even though we may be covering the same topics, is not the same class because it's not the same people. So it may not be always the same stories or the same examples or the same whatever, right? But you do this and you practice your trade, you get those into that toolbox that you can pull out at any time. Don't be who you are, right?
Yeah, but it's okay to borrow. It's okay to borrow.
I think it's essential that you borrow, because now you've got more than one expert in standing in front of the class. Give a citation. I learned this from so-and-so, or someone in my class once told me. So you're not claiming that was your original thought, and
then tell it in your own way.
But tell it in your absolutely.
So
now, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't want to steal your thunder here, and I don't want to interrupt you, which I did, so I apologize. But I did kind of want to hear your Toastmasters message, because, we talked a little about it. How do you get better at things? Toastmasters is one of those ways. And I just want to mention that you told us before we got on the air that you won second place with this Toastmasters message, and I want our audience to kind of hear it and just kind of see what comes out of being in Toastmasters a couple of years.
Okay, and the title of the speech that I gave was Coaching, Metaphorically Speaking.
Okay.
I started out to say, my friends, I want to talk to you briefly, metaphorically, about coaching, perhaps the most important thing that we do as a group, try to help each other become better. And the metaphor that I want to use is the rapier wit Now, there's an idea that requires a little bit of definition. So let's look at it in two parts. We'll start with the rapier. A rapier, if you're not familiar, is a sword. It's a double-edged blade. It's a defensive weapon. It has a nice sharp point at the end. And in order to be effective, it needs to be kept sharp. So let's leave the rapier over here for a second and talk about the wit. A wit is someone who is quick with words, clever with words. Someone, for instance, could be a comedian. So let's review. So far, we have a sharp-tongued comedian. That's not the metaphor I was looking for being a good coach. So let's expand on those definitions and see what we find out. Let's go back to the rapier. I mentioned that it needs to be kept sharp. And if you look down the blade, look down the straight edge. If it's straight as an arrow, it's probably sharp. If it's got little ripples in it, then it's probably dull. That needs to be cured. There are two ways we can cure a dull blade. One of them is called honing. You take a leather strop, it's called, and you take the blade and you slap it back and forth and drag it along there. It heats up the metal, softens it, allows the leather to put a straight edge back on it. When it cools back down, straight as an arrow, sharp as a razor. That is known as honing. The other thing you can do is, well, sharpen it. And you take the blade and you press it against a sharpening stone or other sharpening device until you have a whole new edge. Now, how does all of this play into coaching? Well, think about what we do when we give an evaluation of someone who has just given a speech. One of the first things we do is look at holistically. Did they do a good job? Is there something I can single out and say that was very good? This is a lovely rapier. The next thing we do is we try to find something that they could do better. Well, before you can do better, you have to do. So this is something, a skill set that this person is already attempting, but there's room for improvement. We give them some coaching on that, and that is known as honing a skill. It's literally known as that. And then the last thing we do, the last thing we do is we challenge them to do something new. And that's a new edge. That's sharpening their skill set. Now do you see how the metaphor plays out, at least as far as the rapier is concerned? Once again, we're going to leave the rapier behind and go talk about the wit. When I mentioned wit, that it could be a comedian, I had a very specific comedian in mind, and his name is Michael Jr. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or seen him. He's a tall, dark, he's tall, dark, and handsome. He's a black gentleman. And he is a storyteller. He tells funny stories. And in most of his concerts, he starts with about a half an hour of telling funny stories. And then he'll go, let's take a break from this. I've spent a good bit of time getting to know what you all find humorous as a group, but I'd like to talk for a moment with one or two of you and find out something about you individually. And then in this one particular case, he pointed off to the right-hand side of the stage and he said, and I want to start with you. And he pointed at, just happened to be another black gentleman, big guy, probably 350 pounds easily. And he had a deep bass voice, resonant voice, and he was a laugher. He was the first one to laugh, the last one to stop, and it was infectious. This is the kind of person every speaker hopes is going to be in his crowd. Michael interviewed the man for a few moments, discovered, for instance, that the two of them both grew up in the hood in their own particular cities. And then he asked him, tell me, sir, what do you do? And the guy said, well, I'm the music director for my church. And Michael goes, of course you are. I should have known that. I should have known you were involved. Would you do me a favor? And the guy said, sure. And he said, with that amazing voice, would you sing a verse or two of Amazing Grace? And the guy said, of course I will. We'll give him the microphone. The guy took the microphone and he started to sing. And he hit every note just perfectly, crystal clear, deep, billowing voice. The tempo was just right. The meaning was just right. And when he finished, they just burst into a big round of applause. Michael stood on the stage, raised his hand, and said, this gentleman knows what he's doing. Don't you agree? Everybody started to applaud once again. Then he walked back over to the man and he said, I want you to do something for me, a bigger favor. I want you to sing it again. But this time, I want you to sing it from the perspective of someone who grew up in the hood, whose mother was probably an alcoholic, whose father was probably missing most of his childhood because he was in prison. And maybe you lost a friend or two or took a bullet yourself in a drive-by shooting. Do you know what I'm talking about? And the man said, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And he started to sing again. Only this time, he didn't hit the notes. He found the notes in these long, very emotional runs that would sort of grab you by the back of the neck and drag you into the street. And you could feel the heat, you could feel the hate, you could feel the love, you could feel emotions you just didn't even understand. And this time when he finished, everybody sprang to their feet and gave him a standing ovation. People down front poured into the aisle, slapped him on the shoulder, shook his hand. Some of the ladies gave him a hug. And Michael stood on the stage, tears coming down his cheeks, raised his hand once again and said, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the important message for us as coaches is that every single person within earshot, every single person in your classroom has a why in their life. They have something that would enrich the lives of everybody else. We want to bring that out of them, but we can't forget about the how. You've got to public speak. You've got to put yourself in that situation so you can become better and better as a public speaker, because when it comes time to share the why, I don't want to miss the message because you don't know how. So when you go out there as an instructor, as a teacher, remember, it's not just the why, it's the how. And when you coach those folks, I want you to remember to be a rapier wit. Bingo, second place.
Amazing. Yay. Bill, that was amazing.
Bill, that was
You
great
had me.
and powerful.
The metaphor, the descriptive text, the descriptive, just describing who, what, how, the pulling of the notes from the back of the throat. These are the things that pull people in, right? Because you are taking the time to create the feeling, the emotion, the context, all of those things, so that when somebody gets a message, they're going to remember it for a long time. So thank you for that.
Oh,
That was beautiful.
You're welcome for that. Thanks for the opportunity to share that. I think it's important. You don't have to do what I just did, but you have to do your version of what I just did. You need to be emotional about what you're talking about, because the thing that you don't say, the effect that you don't get across is the place where someone is going to be weak and they're not going to get the message out. People are not going to understand.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for sharing your wisdom once again with us. I'm going to speak for myself, but I think I'm speaking for Mr. James too, because I see it in his face. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing such an important message on training trainers and what it takes to be a good trainer, and how to bring those things out. I really do appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm glad there was a good effect.
And for those that want to go through Train the Trainer with a master trainer from VeriForce, reach out to training sales at veriforce.com. That's training sales at veriforce.com. And you too can be taught by a master trainer, and perhaps
Maybe even Bill VandeSande
himself. Perhaps even Bill himself. But thank you for coming on, Bill. It's always enlightening. I always learn something from you that makes me a better safety professional, a better instructor, a better man, a better Alabama fan. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Well, if you've enjoyed today, go down and hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We're always there on YouTube at the VeriForce channel and on Spotify. We do this for you. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. We have almost 100 episodes that Dr. Martin and I have done with guests, just like Bill VandeSande. You can go back and catch some of his other episodes with us, as well as some other guests, and sometimes just me and Dr. Martin talking about all things safety. So there's an enormous catalog there. Check us out. Again, we're on Spotify. We're on YouTube for VanForce's channel, hopefully coming to another podcast platform here very, very soon. New episodes drop every Tuesday around noon Central. So if you want to write that down, you can, but a better way to remember about the episodes upcoming is to hit that subscribe button, and you will get automatic notifications through Spotify and YouTube, let you know when we got a new episode.
Absolutely. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Bill VandeSande, for everything that you do for your community, for us as a community in the safety profession, for trainers all over the place, educating people. We appreciate you. And to our listeners, we appreciate you too. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
And until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe from high hazard jobs, and roll tide out.